Do you know why your bias is Lee Know? Not the he's talented, he's handsome answer. That's the easy answer. That's the answer you give people who just don't get it. I'm talking about the actual reason, the psychological, personality level reason why this particular person, out of all of them, got you. Because it's not random. It's never random. If you're familiar with the series, I've already done Seungmin, I've done Hyunjin, I've done Felix, and I've done Bangchan. We're now doing Lee Know. We're going to explore their MBTI and some of their love languages, at least, again, with identified of what we've seen. And Lee Know, let me tell you guys, Lee Know he's an interesting cat with a lot of layers. Literally, he's an interesting cat. So here we go. Disclosure time. I am not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just a baby stay, having some fun, learning about stray kids, and I love MBTI. I think it's really fascinating. And hey, I was curious as to why some folks like one member more than the other, and it got me curious. Okay, so Lee Know's MBTI, Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. Here's the thing. It has changed over time, and it also may be a combination of when he is his personal space and his extroverted when he's on stage persona. So I think that's depending on your mood when you take the Myers-Briggs tests, it will affect how you reply back and what your scores are typically. So just keep that in mind. So back in 2019, you saw in the One Kids Room series, there was a test that they did, and it came out ESFJ T, the console, which I guess it describes it as someone that's outward, social, attuned with the group, and harmony driven. So the second result that I also found was in 2020 later. So this is when they're starting to pick up. I think God's Menu just came out already, and it looked like he had shifted to ESFP. So still extroverted, still in his feeling base, but there was a shift. So you see that ESFJ to ESFP, so perception versus judgment. And I think the latest one that I see so far is 2020, and he came out ISFP, which seems to be the majority of, from here on out, the ISFP seems to come up and out. So based on that, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the ISFP side, because I think just based on my baby stay brain, I've seen a little bit of more ISFP, quite frankly, than anything else. So let's talk about that. That shift. How does one go from extroverted to introverted? Does that make sense? Going from structured to open-ended? Let me just try to explain it with this. As through life, we have different stages, and we naturally will respond to those stimulus, right, as we go through different stages in life. And so, again, I said this to everybody. If you are younger, the odds are high your MBTI score may change over time, just because priorities in life change, because you yourself evolve over time. So, again, nothing's ever fixed in stone. But let's talk about this a little bit, because I think it's really fascinating. So what does ISFP actually mean to you? They call the ISFPs adventurers. So what does that look like for a person? Because adventurer sounds like someone that's going to be the first person climbing a mountain, or, going to jump off that cliff, etc. And that's not necessarily what we're talking about. So ISFPs are known to be folks that don't want to be confined by their expectations. So they tend to push against social conventions. They don't do it outwardly, like in your face. It's very subtle. So it's almost like if you don't catch his facial reactions quickly, you may miss it altogether. But it's almost like deviant in a way where, and gosh, it's so Lee Know. And I think that's one of the reasons why so many people are attracted to him. It's very cat-like in a lot of ways, because, for those that have cats, the cats judge you, right? And they might have a facial expression if they want you to pet them, or if they don't want to be petted, all that good stuff. Very similar to Lee Know. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're unemotional. So they definitely feel deeply for people that they care for, and they will open that side to them. It kind of reminds me of Seungmin a little bit with his ISFJ. But I think the big difference between those two is I think Lee Know is much more comfortable with sharing the way he feels as long as it's discreetly done so, like behind closed doors. Whereas Seungmin, I think Seungmin is, you really got to be, he's got to be in that mood when he's really comfortable. And even then, he's probably not all that comfortable, quite frankly. So he said so himself that he can't say words that he doesn't mean. That is a huge thing. I'm going to have to go look on which footage that was. I think it was one of the two kids in a room situations. That sentence right there, I can't say words I don't mean. And that is textbook ISFP. They don't perform emotion. They either feel it and show it through action, or they don't mention it at all. Again, it's the more I read about the ISFP, the more I really feel like this is the Lee Know that is at him at the core, unless that's his act. But, the members have all noted he's very methodical, and you can see that, especially when he's coaching them on how to dance and some of the dance movements. He's a morning person, apparently. He's very structured. And he tends to look towards the future. I think you could see that now I haven't seen the pre-debut, but the fact that he learned how to dance and really learned how to dance to the point where he was able to tour with BTS, auditioned for JYP, didn't hear back, so he just kept on training, kept going. And then when JYP called him up, he had 2 weeks to learn all the JYP dance moves. It's insanity. So someone like this, that's methodical, the fact that he's structured, the fact he's a morning person, so he's going to get up in the morning to practice, is really a signature of the ISFP personality. Now, that being said, that could surprise people because he's also known as being a bit chaotic in his personality. I think it was Bang Chan in an interview, I think it was a Vanity Fair interview, I think it was, where there was a question of if you could be in someone's mind for a day, whose mind would you be? And Bang Chan's like, nah, I don't want to be in anyone's brain. And then he goes, no, wait, Lee Know, because I want to know what he's thinking. And all the rest of the members all laughed. And that kind of tells you that there's some complexity to Lee Know, which I think reflects on why so many people either love or no one hates Lee Know, I don't think. I think it's more of the don't get Lee Know. So it's super love or don't get it. And I think that's what he enjoys, quite frankly. It's almost like a game, like a cat. You swap things around. That's, I think, Lee Know at its core. He just enjoys things like that. So yeah, he kind of comes off as being a bit chaotic, but that's the paradox they say of the ISFP is super hella structured, super determined and disciplined, and then he's like a cat that just knocks a glass off the desk. So a word about his earlier results. So ESFJ, as I'd mentioned. So I was thinking about this and I got some validation. I think there is a bit of ESFJ in him still in his youth. And this is something that is interesting because, him as an ISFP, ESFJ might feel like it's a wrong reading or he wasn't himself when he took the test or what happened, right? And the thing is Lee Know is known as the mother, right? The mom of the group, in partnership with Bang Chan being the dad of the group. And that fits with ESFJ because the ESFJ personality types they tend to take care of the group. So they're the ones that hold things together and they care about the collective harmony of the group. So they're very observant to watch and see what's going on in the dynamics of the group. And there are I've seen so many videos where one of the members will look uncomfortable. Han, for example, with his anxiety and his legs would be shaking and you could see Lee Know's hand kind of just going right over Han's knee to kind of calm him down. It's very motherly. And I'm going to find the clips because I just love that one skit where he's dressed up. So anyway, where Seungmin and him are the divorced married couple. So if you watch him and with all the members, he's much more subtle. It's more quiet. It's never in your face. It's not like like Changbin is really loud, right? And will get in their faces. You don't see that happening with Lee Know. In fact, if anything, he doesn't want anyone to touch him, quite frankly. Very similar to cats, right? Don't pet me until I want you to pet me kind of vibe. So, again, the ESFJ energy is still there. I think you probably see it more so on stage, too. Like, if there's something going on, he'll notice if maybe a member's not doing so well on stage and whatnot. So, he definitely pays attention. But it's probably the lingering effects and, the caring nature of an ESFJ. He's cool. He cares about his team. let's talk about this. I think it's Sundari. Someone tell me how to pronounce that. Tsundere. Cold exterior, warm interior, right? So Lino has talked about the fact that, he's kind of got a little RBF going. And if you don't know what RBF is, look that up, resting you-know-what face. And people expect him to be cold when they meet him. And I don't think that's his intention. Obviously, they say that, he looks unapproachable. There's been criticism that he looks a little mean. But it's not that. It's not like he's trying to be intimidating. It's just kind of the way his face kind of just rests. But he's also, I think, a little on the shy side. I've noticed in interviews where, because he doesn't speak English fluently, he definitely stands back. I think that introversion in him kind of pulls back because there's a little of discomfort, right? Not being able to communicate clearly. And for someone that is as structured as Lino is, I can't begin to imagine that makes him wildly uncomfortable. Now, if you've seen him interviews in Korea, much more conversational. You can see much more of his personality come out. He actually laughs, he jokes around a little bit. And I think even in the Japanese interviews, because he can speak some Japanese, I mentioned before, he takes the lead and he will talk much more comfortably than in Western interviews. Apparently, that cold exterior, that warm interior, that's a signature of the ISFP. So they don't lead with warmth, they don't perform, and they don't fake approachability. So, in an industry that's entirely built on being approachable, he's almost like the anti-idol in a way. In fact, you can see him on stage. He sneers and makes faces and he does this, don't even go there type of thing. And it's part of his charm for a lot of people who notice him. So if this is a personality type you like, be aware, just because they come off as being, mean and standoff-ish, that's not necessarily who they are. I think with Lino though too, and I chuckle, when he is being kind of mean, he always says this little, you have to look for his micro expression on this. So for those that love body language, he'll do a little like a self-congratulatory smile, like he thinks he's getting away with it, and he'll just make that face, and then it's a real quick thing. So check that out. Hopefully I can find a video that will reflect that. So let's talk about authenticity. As I'd mentioned before, Lino is all about being who you are and being real. He cannot do that game that people play. So I watched him at the Gucci spring event in Paris, and he just sat there very patient, he was chill. But it was really interesting. Again, he wasn't playing the fake hello game. You could watch the videos. He kind of just stood there a little bit and kind of looked around and pretty stoic. But there's one footage of him walking out of, I don't know where he's walking out of, but they were chanting Lee Know, Lee Know, Lee Know. And you could see him genuinely light up and genuinely enjoy being there, which is, he was way more animated in that moment, which I thought that was really hella cool. It was him it was a video, for those that know, it was a video of him walking out with his own camera. So that's going to be a future vlog, right? But there was someone that had the Lee bit, and he signed the bunny, which I thought was really cool. So again, he's comfortable with being with himself, being by himself on and off stage, and that's his personal style. He doesn't do things though if it feels slightly inauthentic. He'll just clam up. I just don't see him playing that game for very long, which is probably why it makes him so attractive. So if you are attracted to someone, this type of personality type will stand their ground. This is the type of personality that you know exactly where you stand, and there's no question about that. So if you're the personality type that needs to know where you're at with someone, this personality type will never lead you astray. All right, I got to talk about Lino's dancing. So one more piece about the ISFP picture before we move on. His dancing, he can express himself so well. It is beautiful to watch him move. His movements are very precise. It's like Hyunjin, as I was talking, Hyunjin, you can feel the moving glide, and it's just you can tell the boy is vibing the music. With Lino, he's definitely feeling it, but it's so much more controlled in a way. Don't get me wrong, Hyunjin's control of his body is insane. But Lee Know is like almost like they say like technically, like precise, and he's just nails all the movements. And that's a great reflection about how he came up, in the dance crew years for him to pre-debut. People have noted about his natural style, how fluid he can be with his movements. They flow into each other rather than like the disconnected. And actually there were some videos earlier of him early on in his career, and you could see a little bit of that disjointedness until he learned how the mechanics of the body moves. And then again, he's the one coaching all the members on how to do dance moves and improve. So let's talk about Lee Know's love language. Okay, again, this is based on my observations, so take it with a grain of salt. But to me, he is the epitome of acts of service. So he's like that quiet caretaker. And I believe he has said this before. It's better to live well together than to live well alone. And that is like funny to me. And when I first heard that, considering, he is a bit of a cat-like personality and he kind of likes his own personal space. But at the same time, remember that ESFJ ghost that I was telling you about? He really is looking for harmony. He sees the bigger vision of stray kids as a group having the pressure to stay together in a way that works well for all of their different personality types. So for him being an acts of service person, that is like the philosophy of an acts of service type of person, right? So live better well together than live well alone. So he doesn't announce the things he does. His members have noted he's always looking after them in his own way. He doesn't make a moment out of it. He just kind of does it, right? And of course, Lee Know being Lee Know, because he has to have that little edge of chaos, he probably makes fun of them while he's loving them, right? So it's almost that, again, I want to know how to say it, you guys, tsundere, sun way of doing it, which is like he's going to be cold towards you, but he's still feeding you the food. So acts of service people express love by making things better for the people they care for. So they don't need the acknowledgement, and just doing it is the whole purpose for them. Another thing about love language is the attention to who you actually are. So here's the thing about Lee Know's care that I think the most underrated part of his personality. He adjusts how he treats people based on who they actually are. So his members have talked about this. He softens his humor for Felix, who's more sensitive, while going harder with Seungmin and Changbin, who can take it. He reads people and then calibrates. When I was looking this up and checking it out, it is so true how much more rougher. He has definitely a different vibe with each of the members, especially the way he looks at them. I think it's all in, with Lee Know, it's all in his eyes. So that level of attunement is not that common. Most people love the way they want to be loved, not the way the other person actually receives it. So that's the difference between going through the motions and actually caring. So as it maps out, this perfectly is that residual ESFJ pattern that I talked about earlier. The guy who notices what people need and then quietly adjusts. And then there's this. Teasing for them is the intimacy, because it requires knowing someone well enough to know what they can take and trusting them enough to go there. So if he's ignoring you, that tells something. If he's bothering you, that tells you something very different. So if this is the type of personality that you're attracted to, I hate to say it's almost like that school children type thing where, he's picking on me. Well, it's probably because he likes you. Okay, so let's pull this all together. You have an ISFP who doesn't perform warmth, but expresses it constantly through action. He will not tell you he cares about you, but will show up for you in ways that are quietly undeniable. He looks cold on the outside, like he doesn't care, and he teases the people, teases all the people that he loves. And it's also a person that's been described by his members as being the anchor in the midst of all the chaos that is Stray Kids. So that combination creates something very specific, a person you have to earn. His realness isn't given freely. His warmth isn't broadcast. His affection comes sideways, and something in people, especially people who are tired of performance, tired of things that are designed to make you feel something, responds to that on a level that they can't always articulate. So you don't have to justify why your bias is Lee Know, but now you know why. If I got it right, let me know in the comments. If I got it wrong, also let me know in the comments. The Stay Fandom does not play, and I respect that. So kindly like and subscribe. If you're here for more of this, please, please, please like and subscribe. This channel could not grow without you. I totally appreciate it. And let me know if I'm off base. And the next one, I believe, is going to be Changbin. So for those that love Changbin, send me some notes and I will include it into this next episode. See you till next time.